Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I've got a video for you considering whether or not to send your children back to school. It's the conundrum I've been put in. We've had an email from school this week to basically say that because the government has recommended that reception year 1 and year 6 go back, that my girls who are in reception are welcome to come back on the 1st of June, and they'd like us to confirm whether or not we would be sending them. If you're not aware, in the UK we are just sending those year groups back, but the guidelines are that if you choose not to as a parent, that you won't be fined or penalised in any way for not sending your children to school. So basically they're putting the ownership on the parents to make the decision about whether or not they send their children to school, but then they're putting the schools in a position to kind of encourage those year groups to come back. I am a qualified primary school teacher. I spent 12 years teaching in a primary school classroom. I've got lots of teacher friends, and so I'm kind of hearing messages from parents, and I'm also hearing messages from teachers about what schools might look like when the children go back. And so I wanted to share with you some of the things that I'm considering and some of the things that have been going through my mind when trying to make this decision about whether or not to send my girls back on the 1st of June. So hopefully this won't come across as like a ranty video, it'll come across more as a really considered approach to making that decision. And I have to admit, when the announcement was made last week that reception in year 1 and year 6 would be going back, my gut reaction was, hell no, no they won't be. I'm not sending my girls back. And over the course of this week I've tried to be a lot more considered, because one thing I've realised is, especially on social media, if you are quite opinionated and you have got lots of strong thoughts, when you put that out into the world and when you are scrolling through Facebook, you get that same message coming back to you time and time again. So I hear that same message of no way, I'm not sending my kids back to school all the time on social media, and I just want to try and make sure I'm not getting tunnel vision and I'm not just listening to my own thoughts over and over again, that I am actually considering this properly and making a really sensible decision, and what's making the decisions in the best interest of my girls. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to go through kind of my pros and cons of whether or not I should send the girls back to school and what things I've been considering. Have written a little letter because I wanted to call the school up and have a little chat with the school. Unfortunately, the head teacher wasn't available. So I'm going to go through. So one of the reasons that's maybe thinking that sending them back isn't that bad an idea is that they were in school in March, and that rate of infection was much higher than it is now, and so they're in less risk now than they were in March when they were in school. And so that's one of the reasons I'm thinking, well, maybe that's a reason to send them back. I'm also really concerned about them going back in September and going straight into year 1. EYFS is such an important year, and especially for one of my girls, that transition to go straight into year 1, having missed half of their foundation stage year, is really worrying me. And so there is a part of me that thinks getting them back sooner and will help with that transition, so they have some time. I'm also thinking that going back sooner, there will be less children in school, and so they're going to have more one-to-one time, more personalised learning. They might get a real extra boost to their learning by going back a little bit earlier. They're going to have hopefully a lot of attention, because they're going to be in small groups. Our school have talked about them being in bubble groups, so they'd be grouped together with a teacher and some children, and that would be the group that they would stay in whenever they're in school, I presume up until the summer, or until the situation changes. So that's kind of my pros for sending them in. My cons, my reasons I don't want to send them in, is the whole bizarre notion of social distancing in primary schools. If anyone's ever been into a primary school, then they'll know that that is just not possible. There is just no way you're going to be able to social distance, especially 4 and 5 year olds. And even if you could, as a parent, I don't want you to. Why would I want my 4 and 5 year olds going back to a place where they felt safe and secure and loved, to a place where they are told to keep their distance, where they are told to stay in a circle. I mean, those pictures that you've probably seen of the French playgrounds with children in circles in the playground. I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous. I wouldn't want my girls going back to a school like that. If they're going back to a school, I want them to go back to some kind of sense of normalcy where they're able to play. And the reason for sending them back would be the socialisation, the fact that they're missing friends, the fact that they really are missing out on that aspect that I can't give them at home in this time. And if you were to send them back and then they couldn't have those things, then what's the point? Why am I sending them back? I just think that with the social distancing idea in school, that is going to be detrimental to our children's social and emotional development. And so that's kind of why I wanted to speak to the head teacher, but I guess they're not actually going to be able to tell you, because they're going to be having pressure from above that they have to try and encourage social distancing, like rigorous hygiene, hand washing. And I mean, one of my girls is a thumb sucker. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to be constantly telling her to take her thumb out of her mouth? I mean, we've tried at home as hard as we can to break that habit. I mean, we've tried everything. So I wouldn't want her to go back to a situation where that wasn't really that big an issue to it now being a huge issue. And them taking away all the toys of things that can't, like, maybe they've been taking books away. I mean, you can't really clean books, can you? I just doesn't sit well with me. I also don't want them to go back to a school where their school life is going to be dominated by unrealistic expectations and rules. So like with the hygiene, like with the social distancing, those are things that teachers are going to be told they have to try and enforce, and yet that they're going to end up dominating the day. I feel like the children are just going to be seeing and hearing constantly about washing hands, not touching your face, cleaning surfaces, and I feel like there's not going to be an awful lot of learning happening. It's going to be dominated by all of that instead. And finally, the last reason I am reluctant to send them back is because of the government's suggestion of making smaller groups, which I completely can see why they're doing that. It's likely that my girls are not going to end up going back to their class teacher. They may very well end up with a teacher they've never worked with before, a teacher they don't know. They may end up in a group with none of their friends. And so I feel like that could be more disruptive than just holding off and waiting until September, when hopefully, although the risk won't have gone, the restrictions on social distancing might be looser, the chances of them being in a more normalised school environment are higher. And so I think I'm kind of sitting more on the side of that. I'm not going to send them back to school in June, and I'm just going to play it by ear a bit longer. If by mid to late June a lot changes, I may very well change my mind and see about them going in 1 or 2 days a week. We'll see. We're just going to have to see what the school offers and how much flexibility there is in terms of letting them go in and not letting them go in. And the final thing I just wanted to consider was the fact that my family is low risk. So none of us have got any conditions that are going to be putting us in high risk, or if we were to get it, we're likely to not suffer too severely. However, my extended family are all high risk. And so what I don't want to happen is have to choose between sending them to school and then that delaying the time that I have to stay away from my extended family. So if I'm going to have to choose between sending them to school and seeing my extended family sooner, then I'm going to choose to see my extended family sooner, and the girls will just have to stay at home for longer. So that's kind of where I'm landing. I'm not sending them back to school on the 1st of June. I hope this video has been helpful and it's given you some things to think about and things to consider. I really think it's a personal choice, and every single family are going to have to make it based on their own individual circumstances, whether they're high risk, what their income's going to be affected, whether or not how their child is dealing with isolation and not being with other children. There's so many factors to consider, and I really hope that you can come to a decision that sits comfortably with you and that you are happy to make. I don't think there is a winning solution. I don't think either solution is a good one. I don't want to be keeping my girls away from their friends and away from school longer, but I think that's where I've landed. I I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you next time for another video coming your way soon. Bye!